All right, folks, let's see. Looks like I'm live. Hello! Welcome to one of my live streams. My name's Chris. I'm the host of my show Comic Tropes, and most of the time that's an edited show where I'm discussing comic book history or techniques by various writers, artists, all sorts of stuff like that. This time I'm doing a live stream. Do these every once in a while so that I have the opportunity to interact and chat with some of you. Get a chance to know my audience. Hello, Sam. Nice to see. Sam has a nice little badge there. That indicates that he is a member. So that's a cool new thing that YouTube is letting me do. If you want to support this channel, beside the subscribe button below the video, if you're on YouTube, there should be a join button. And for, I think it's $1.99 a month, you become a member. Mostly that means supporting the channel, but you get some cool stuff out of it. Badges, emojis, and access to some exclusive videos. So, sort of a new thing that I've introduced. Not sort of, it is. I don't know why I added wiggle words there. Nice to see everybody. I don't know about you. I'm feeling good. I feel like I've got my energy back. I've been eating really healthy lately. I've lost a lot of weight. I've got a lot more to lose, but you know, I'm taking care of myself, and it feels good. Today I'm going to do a couple things here. One of them is I'm going to work on inking a sketch of Guts from Berserk that I did a little earlier today. But first, I thought that I would do a quick sketch just in pencil, and just to sort of like show you from scratch my sort of process. Don't know how good this will turn out, but I'm going to draw Iceman. It's somebody in the Twitter world pointed out to me when I was like, "Oh, what should I draw today?" They were like, "Well, it's Pride Month. Why don't you draw, like, you know, Iceman? That's a fairly prominent gay character right now." And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of a cool idea. Iceman's just cool to draw, so I like that idea. Let's see what I can do with it. I don't know, you know, how good I'll do, but I'm willing to give it a crack. So I'll just, I always liked Iceman because one of the first sort of Marvel things I was exposed to when I was growing up was a Spider-Man cartoon on Saturday mornings, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and that featured Iceman. So I've always sort of liked Iceman as a character. Let's see. And the cool thing you can do with him is that it's he's like a naked guy essentially, but he's got like a cool sort of angular musculature because of course he's in his ice form. Just finished Berserk, and God, it was so good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Berserk. That was a book that I largely discovered because of doing this show. People talked it up early on when I was doing this show, and I was like, oh, okay, got to check that one out because I'm hearing so many good things. And I also really fell in love with it. It's just so epic. Yeah, it's definitely something special. It's pretty impressive. Just fleshing out like the block shapes of where this will go. What pencil are you using? Oh, nothing too special. This is a Graph Gear 1000 by Pentel. Just a mechanical pencil. Nothing fancier than that. But I like this one. It's I just find it very comfortable to hold. It's kind of heavy, but it's got a nice grip, so it's just really weighted nicely. Big fan. I think the audio is a little quiet. Somebody says, well, let me see if I can do anything about that. I've got it boosted all the way. So what I will do instead is I am going to move some of my materials. Sorry about the clanking. And now I've got my microphone. I'm sorry, I'm bending it, so you might have heard some weird sounds. I aimed it towards myself and brought it a little closer. So hopefully that's nice. Let's see here. And I'm trying to come up with Iceman in sort of a surfer's pose, I guess you could call it, you know? Because he could always create those ice slides. And the version I grew up with had, like, you know, just a sort of square head, but he ends up also a lot of times looking like Silver Surfer, and in more recent years they sort of gave him, like, let him grow ice hair and stuff. So I'm going to be doing that. Let's see. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up, and I'll do my best. I try never to ignore anyone, but I'm also drawing at the same time, so of course just keep that in mind that if I miss you, it's definitely not personal, okay? Oh, super chat already from Steve Sorensen saying, do you have any favorite sports teams? Yeah, I definitely do. I grew up in Boston, so like I am legally obligated to be a fan of the Patriots and the Red Sox. You know, technically I like the Celtics and the Bruins as well, but I mostly just sort of, football's the game that I like the most, American football, and then I will follow the baseball season sort of like right at the end, at the as the World Series begins. I sort of get a little more into that, yeah, all based on where I grew up. Let's see, another super chat from Pocket Watch Press. With your considerable knowledge, questionable, credibility, up to you, and following, yeah, thank you. Have you considered self-publishing comics? Thanks for the original, thoughtful content. Well, I used to self-publish comics before I really ever did YouTube. Like, so I've definitely done quite a bit of that. It's been a while since I've done anything. But I definitely have in the past, so that, like, because I want to know every aspect of comics. You know, I draw, I write, I ink, I color, I letter, I edit, but I've also gotten into, like, you know, printing and publishing and stuff, so that I can really understand and respect every role that everybody has. If you know, as far as like working with collaborators. So yeah, I've definitely done some self-publishing. Ever since I got sick, you know, with COVID, I have been giving some serious thought to maybe self-publishing again, maybe pitching my idea stuff first, and if it doesn't get picked up, then moving to the world of self-publishing again. So we'll see. Do I consider myself a superhero? Not anymore, but there was a brief period of time, like about a year, where I patrolled the streets of Seattle with Phoenix Jones, if you've ever heard of him. I guess I thought that I would make more of an impact, or we would all make more of an impact doing that stuff. Wow, this is an interesting super chat. Oh, I don't recognize where that's from, but let's see. Releverite Art asks, what do you think about some Western comics artist writers' criticisms of manga during the past few months or so, especially with the trend that manga is objectively selling better than their works? Well, first of all, I'm not 100% sure what you're specifically referring to, saying in the past few months there's been certain criticisms. So I'm not 100% clear on what that might refer to, like who said what. I will say that objectively, it sells better? Mostly it does. But of course, there's some American comics, especially as trade paperbacks, that would outsell certain manga. So you can't, like, as an industry, yes, manga sells more copies every week and month. But, something like Walking Dead is definitely making a lot more than, like, certain manga that isn't in Shonen Jump or is only in Shonen Jump for a week or two before getting voted out. So you got to compare certain things, and ultimately, to me, it's all comics. Manga is just another word for comics, and I think that there's excellent manga, and I think that there's some that's pretty darn weak. So, there's definitely stuff in there that I love, but I'm not going to say that, like, one is inherently superior to another. I don't really feel that. I hope that makes sense. I'd say that there are certain creators that are better than others, but that's about it. It all comes down to personal preference, right? Interesting question, and I sincerely appreciate the question and the super chat. It's really nice of you. Who are some hidden gems in the comic book industry whose work you think more folks should flock toward? Yeah, right now I feel like I'm not as plugged in to up and coming talent as I used to be, actually. So that's a great question. But one I don't feel like I know as well as I did several years ago or something. I think I didn't like how that was coming out. Better to fix it. There are some that I still consider underrated, but they're still, like, working for some big publishers. Like, I definitely think that Daniel Warren Johnson. I did an episode about him recently. I think he's great. I think he's going to get more popular than he is. But he is already, like, working for, like, Marvel and DC. So it's not like he's unknown. Let's see. Please answer my question. Do you like Nick Spencer's run on Spider-Man? Well, I don't have an opinion. I didn't read it. I looked at a couple issues because, I definitely am a fan of Ryan Ottley's work, and I wanted to see what it looked like. But I don't have a strong opinion. I didn't read the whole thing, so I can't tell you whether I liked it or didn't. I don't know. Yeah, a lot of times if you ask me, do I like this, Marvel comic or that Marvel comic? Well, I don't know. I don't read them all, so I don't always have, like, a strong opinion on something like that. Let's do a little bit of inking here, but then I'm gonna move over to guts because that's really what I want to work on. I just wanted to sort of do. I'm gonna really ink this very loosely, just to sort of get the major idea out. Oh, Steve has another super chat here with a question. If you ever have time, there is Super Eye Patch Wolf who goes over jump stats every year, up and coming and canceled. Keep reading comics, Chris. I will keep reading comics. You keep reading comics. That's cool. When I go to Japan, which is usually once a year, but of course it's been a while because of the pandemic, I always I go to Japan and I'll pick up the latest Shonen Jump. I appreciate manga. I don't read tons, but I love. Right now, I've been rereading Berserk because that's going to be my next episode. I like My Hero Academia. It's about the only one I'm really into these days in here. what else? I'll read whatever Naoki Urasawa's putting out for manga, and right now he's doing some great stuff. You know, I like variety, so I read lots of different comics. Oh, wow, look at this. Thank you for your response. I've been binging your videos while I work. Thank you. And thank you for your content. That means a lot. You're putting out important and valuable material, and I've learned so much from you. I hope more people find your content. God bless. Well, that means a lot to me. Thank you so much for the support. That really is very, very generous of you. Berserk is something that, like, sometimes episodes take me a little longer, and generally it's because, you know, I'm a big fan of that thing, and I don't want to screw it up. I want to do the best job that I can. And that becomes, like, you know, intimidating to me. Like, oh, don't want to mess this one up. Berserk is one of those episodes, you know. Sometimes I wish I could do better for things that I really, really love. But, you know, it is what it is. It just, there's a little bit of what would I even call this? Like, just sort of an intimidation that I'm putting on myself. So anyway, but it's what I'm working on. Hopefully I can do it justice. It's also, like, you know, you have to really give some thought to something like Berserk, because it's been going on for a very long time. There's a lot of material there. You can't possibly just summarize it all. Well, I guess you could, but that's not that interesting. Yeah, I'm aware of Naoki Urasawa's YouTube channel. I definitely watch that. I love it. My Japanese isn't great, so sometimes I do have a little bit of a tough time understanding all of it, but it's awesome. Anyway, I sort of lost my thread there, but all I was trying to say is that got some episodes in the works. Just some of them take a little longer than others. Let's see. I'm about to get around to Berserk Ultimate. Yeah, well, I love it. You know, looking at it, I think that the first arc really sort of throws you into the deep end and isn't, like, bad, but it also isn't, like, its best. You know, like, all I can say is it gets better, but of course it does. Like, you know, when is the very beginning of a comic the absolute best it ever got? That's pretty rare, right? So it's sort of like, if I tell someone, like, if you're going to try Berserk, please have a little bit of patience and get through the first arc, Black Swordsman, which isn't that long. What, something like, I forget how many volumes, but it's not that many. And at least give the Golden Age arc a chance. But I say don't jump ahead, because you'll get more context if you're patient. Have I read Innocent by Shinichi Sakamoto? No, I have not. I have not read that. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about it. I'm not familiar. I'm about done with this. Whoops. Sometimes I'm going a little too crazy with some of these decisions. So what I'd do is, you know, I'd have him going on sort of an ice slide here. You know what I liked? Because I'm such a '90s guy. Whilce Portacio was drawing the X-Men at one point, and he gave Iceman these sort of like energy things that were like showing him generating his ice. And I don't feel I can do that same thing justice, but I did like how it looked. If you've ever seen like that, he drew an interesting Iceman. Let's see, Pocket Watch Press with the question: what cons would you suggest that a young up-and-coming creator table at? Thanks for being such a unique and positive voice in the community. Steve Sorensen says, ink me a Jacob deGrom, please. LFGM. I don't know Jacob deGrom. I'm sorry, Steve. Let me jump back to the other question, which is, what conventions should an up-and-coming creator go to? Well, first of all, it depends what kind of an artist you want to be, doesn't it? If you want to be a mainstream artist drawing superheroes for Marvel and DC, or even some of the bigger publishers like Image and Dark Horse, well, you're going to be able to network and show your portfolio around to editors. You'll probably have a better chance at a convention like, of course, Comic-Con in San Diego and New York Comic-Con. Those are some of the bigger ones. Maybe go to one of the big ones like in what's Florida? Is that MegaCon? And Dragon Con in Atlanta. Those are some of the big ones. But if you're up and coming with sort of your own ideas, and you are more interested in working for a publisher like Fantagraphics or Oni, or maybe even Still Image with your own idea, things like that, I would look into places like Small Press Expo, Alternative Press Expo, MoCA, some of the smaller conventions. I think that you could do yourself justice there. So there's my 2 cents. Hopefully that's helpful. Let's see what we've got here. I'm going to start with some really tiny technical pens for filling in some detail here with Guts. Guts is the protagonist of Berserk. And his name might sound a little edgelord at first, Guts, but thematically it actually does make a lot of sense. So, yeah, just give it a chance. It's pretty impressive stuff. Let's see. I'm actually a writer who has successfully crowdfunded 2 issues of a series, preparing to launch a 3rd. Congratulations, that's amazing. I want to draw, but I have a kind of grip problem on my pencils. Any advice? I'd say don't try to follow anybody's rules. Grip the pencil however you are comfortable, and don't try to mimic somebody else's style. Just try to do the best you can do, and that becomes your style. So it's okay if you're not gripping the pencil super tightly or the same way that your favorite artist does. Let yourself just do the best you can, and you're going to find what works for you. Just have fun with it. That's the thing. Keep your passion. If you turn it into like work or an obligation, like trying to mimic something specific, you're never going to succeed, because you're going to have to find a way to retain your passion and your fun doing this stuff. And that can be hard. Answer me this. Is Kentaro Miura's death in the top 10 anime deaths? Well, no. He's a real person. Kentaro Miura was an artist, so I don't quite know what you mean. Like, was he in the top 10 anime deaths? Anime implies, was he in a cartoon? And no, he was a real person. It's a huge tragedy and loss. Huge. Certainly in modern years, one of the bigger losses we've had, because he was also, 54 or something. That's pretty young. Wait until you see Trad Moore's grip. Oh yeah, I've seen artists with some really funky ways to draw. Look up a video of Eric Larson of Savage Dragon fame. Look at how he draws. He holds the pencil pretty strange, but he's figured out his own way to control it. He's certainly got a recognizable style, I would say. So yeah, even if you feel like you're gripping it loose and your drawings are looser than what you want, that's just how you draw, and that's okay. Just get comfortable drawing. I'd say, like, really focus as much as you can early on drawing from life, and you will start to figure out where you can exaggerate and what you can do that's a little unique and different and comfortable for you. So it'll come with time. It will. The only thing you can really do as an artist, the only thing you can really do is just draw. Just draw, and you will get better no matter where you start. You know, I was interviewing Todd McFarlane that one time, and he said he had a piece of advice that definitely sort of new, but he really put it into words and has clarified it in recent years for me, and that is, say there's like 3 artists who are much better than you at drawing, or at least in your opinion they are. Maybe they're popular or something. But if they're slow and you can just crank out work and you're consistent, you're eventually going to get the jobs that they don't. You know, the comics industry is built on not the most technically proficient, but the people whose work can get out there in front of people. Can I just say, ever since discovering this channel, it's very educational knowing stuff about comic books and its history in general. Oh, well, thank you so much, Black White. Will I ever talk about Zot or Scott McCloud? Yeah, I think I will, Nicholas. I think I definitely will. But, you know, boy, talking about somebody who has himself, like, set the bar so high for, you know, discussing what a comic book is pretty intimidating, and it's something I want to do my best to get right, and I probably won't, but I want to try. Another super chat. Have you ever thought of doing a video about the late Michael Turner? He is the only other artist whose death made me cry besides Kentaro Miura. These men changed my life as an artist. Wow. I consider, like, Michael Turner and Kentaro Miura very, very different types of artists. So that's interesting that it, but you know what, like, we're of course creatures of inherent conflict that like different things, and that's what makes us unique. Will I talk about Michael Turner? It's always possible, you know, anyone is, you know, fair game for a topic, if it's, because I like to cover all sorts of comics. I'll have to admit, he wouldn't be one of my first choices. I was not really a huge fan of his work. I don't think he was a bad person, though. I did meet him once back in the day at a Chicago Comic-Con, actually after the convention. Like, my friends and I were at a bar, and he and his friends were playing pool right next to us, and, you know, I didn't really know that much about him, but I mean, I said hello and talked, and he was a pleasant enough fellow. We didn't really talk his work or anything, but, you know, just because it was somebody that was, like, right next to me, and he was nice. I just, yeah, his work always just seemed a little stiff to me in terms of what I like. For instance, you know, he's got a fairly popular cover of The Flash, and it's got some great coloring behind it of, like, The Flash, you know, having like this energy effect behind him, but he's standing there, and to me, I'm like, wow, like, I think Michael Turner might have been the first guy to draw the Flash just standing still, instead of, like, you know, running or doing something quick, which is certainly a way to go. I don't think he was bad. I just, not every artist is going to speak to every reader, and Michael Turner's work just didn't speak to me in a big way. But it's not a no. It's not a no. Thoughts on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Oh, yeah, I need to read more of that to get a fully informed opinion. Initially, I have to say, I did not love the artwork, but the story's kind of weird, and I kind of like that. So we'll see. We'll see. I think I haven't given up on that or anything. Just wanted to say it's cool watching you draw, and I missed the rest, but that's really kind of you. I know you're streaming while I'm awake. Well, welcome, Sheldon. Thank you for joining. Fave pieces of cyberpunk media. That's a cool question. I think visually that Akira does have some cyberpunk elements to it, although the story isn't necessarily what I would classify as cyberpunk. But I think visually it sort of fits. I definitely think that Blade Runner has to be in there as like one of the most influential American visually influences for cyberpunk. I think that who am I thinking of? I'm of course like a lot of the writing of William Gibson, but I'm also thinking of who wrote Snow Crash. All of a sudden I'm blanking on a name, but I'm sure everybody out there will know who I'm talking about. Neil something. I can't remember right now. Hello, Chris. Nice to see you. Hello, Matteo. Nice to have you here joining us. I'm so happy you're doing this type of live stream and that it appears to be a success. It's fascinating. I am proud to be a patron. Well, thanks, Ken. I'm proud to have you. Hey, how I see that your donation just now, thank you for that, like is from Canada. Where in Canada are you from, and how are things going there? I've got a few friends in Canada, and I know that like lately it's been a little slow to get some of the vaccines out to people there. Hopefully you're having an okay time with things. Do you ever feel the artwork you have kept you from reading a story you thought were interesting? Oh, sure, probably. Yeah, there's artists that don't always like appeal to me, and then later I find out that like it supposedly is a really great story. Boy, it's hard to think of something like that off the top of my head, but yeah, there's definitely been cases like that. It's a visual medium, but what's most important is that somebody can tell a story coherently, and sometimes that isn't like the flashiest or prettiest, but as long as it's coherent, that's more what's important, isn't it? Speed of work is important. Rodney Ramos was mediocre at best, but he could ink lightning fast, and editors hired him to save their ass when a deadline was tight. Well, I made that episode about oh, what inker am I thinking of? Worked with Jack Kirby on a lot of stuff, and it's one of my more popular episodes, and all of a sudden I'm blanking on his name. Anyway, there's been inkers who aren't the most technically proficient, but they got the work done when it was crunch time, and that's pretty damn important. Vince Coletta. Thanks, Ben. Vince Coletta. I don't love his work, but I totally understand why he got work. He hit his deadlines, and he hit it in crunch time. That's so valuable. I totally understand why he got work. What's advice on bombastic hairstyles? Same as anything, figure out like what kind of ethnicity it is and practice the kind of flows or curls that it has. Hair is fun, man. I love drawing hair. Guts has a comically large sword, which I think has really become not just iconic for him, but I think it's been hugely influential for media that came after Guts. I'm sure he wasn't the first guy to have the biggest sword. I gotta look up who would have been the first protagonist to have a massive sword that was like, just way too big. But I think that when you look at, say, the character Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, like, they definitely got the idea of, like, the huge sword from Guts in Berserk. They definitely did. And there's others, yeah. Chris likes hair. Yikes. Yeah. The only thing I hate drawing are backs. The trick to being a good artist is trying to get good at the stuff that you hate so that you can bang it out fast. Like, don't avoid it, just, like, get good at it. So if you don't like drawing cars or something, just get good at it so that you can do it quickly. Just the worst thing you could do is avoid what you don't like. That's the worst thing you could probably do for yourself. Got a cat around here. The author I was thinking of earlier was Neil Stephenson. Thanks, Iron Shell. That is who I was thinking of. I think Neil Stephenson has written some good cyberpunk stuff. Yeah. Back muscles are so cool, though. They are when it's well done. That's for sure. Super chat here from Jordan. Thank you. And it says, what is your favorite Spider-Man writer? Also really like the new animated opening. Miss the old song, though. Well, thank you for that. I have to vary it up every once in a while to keep myself interested. I think Harry Partridge did an amazing job on my opening. I adore it. So I'm glad you like it, too. Favorite Spider-Man writer? I've thought about this a little lately because people have asked in the chat, and I have realized that one of my favorites is J.M. DeMatteis. He just really wrote some really good Spider-Man stories. He wrote what I think is my favorite Spider-Man story, Kraven's Last Hunt. And if I'm remembering correctly, he, in the middle of the Clone Saga, wrote this incredible issue where Aunt May passes away, and it's more just due to old age. And of course they retconned that and brought her back, but that doesn't really diminish the fact that as a single story, it was quite good. And he could also write Spider-Man fun and quippy and stuff, but he could write serious stories as well. JMS is your favorite, Abdoulaye? Well, JMS had good plots, but for me it was too magic focused. There was a lot of Thor and Doctor Strange and mystical totems and stuff like that. Morlun. Not that any of that is bad. I just feel that Spider-Man tends to work best when he's focused on more street level criminals. Yeah. Do you rightfully hate Youngblood, as all of us do? It's probably not accurate for me to say that I hate it, because you know what? Like, when I was a kid growing up, I was as excited about Image stuff as anybody. I bought Youngblood when it was brand new. I thought Rob Liefeld's work on New Mutants was cool. My opinions have changed as I've gotten older. I'm not quite the fan of his art that I was. I respect what he does marketing-wise and hype-wise. But it's not fair for me to say that I hate that. I would say that I more hate some of the spin-off stuff that like he would hand off to other people that he wasn't too involved in, like, say, Brigade. I can't even really remember what that one was about. I'd say that, like, I kind of didn't like that stuff. But I can't say that I hated Youngblood. That just wouldn't be fair, because I was excited by it at one point. And I'll tell you this. Who would have thought this? Liefeld's doing a Snake Eyes book, like a 5-issue Snake Eyes book. He's put out, like, I think 4 of the issues. And I didn't like it too much. I didn't think it was very good. But I liked G.I. Joe, and I was curious. I was like, you know what? I'm still curious enough at picking it up. And then right when I'm like ready to bail on it, he comes up with the most interesting idea. He hires all these ringers to work on the 5th issue with him. He hired the cartoonist kayfabe guys, Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor, to work on a page each. He's got Neil Adams, like a legend, working on it. He came up with a cover. He inked a sketch by Larry Hama, who is G.I. Joe as far as I'm concerned. That's pretty genius, coming up with all of that stuff. So, have I been harsh with my critique of Rob's artwork? I have. I definitely have. And I stand behind what I said. But I don't dislike the man. I don't. Because he's got areas that are very impressive. And a big one of that is how well he does at getting people excited about his comics. It's pretty impressive. What do you think of the Power Rangers comics? Haven't read any of them. I'm just a little too old. I was a little curious about Power Rangers the first 2 years, but I was already in my older teens and not too invested in that stuff at the time. So yeah, I can't say I've ever been a massive expert on Power Rangers. I don't dislike Power Rangers. I think it's kind of goofy fun, or at least it was when I knew about it those first couple years. And the one thing I can say about Power Rangers is that made me curious was the artwork I've seen shared in news articles and social media by artist Dan Mora. His artwork really looks cool to me. There's a guy that I think is going to explode at some point soon, because damn, his stuff was gorgeous. I was like, who's this guy that's working on Power Rangers? I still come from this era where if it was a licensed comic, you generally would you'd initially start with maybe some top talent for the first few issues, and then it was sort of handed off to sort of just jobbers at the company. And but now it's not, doesn't seem like that. It seems like licensed comics have a lot of profitability, so they can really go to some still top tier talent, mostly up and coming talent. I haven't read Alan Moore's Providence. I probably should. Alan Moore does not really let me down. I'm sure that not everything of his is my cup of tea, but everything I've read I have appreciated. I understand why he became who he is. I do. Kayfabe guys definitely changed my opinion on Liefeld. I think that they're bigger fans of Liefeld than me, and they make no bones about it, and I respect them for that, because you know what, I don't need everybody to have my exact same opinions. It doesn't bother me at all if you like a comic that I didn't, or if you don't like a comic that I do like. It doesn't bother me, as long as we can just sort of talk respectfully and respect the medium. Totally get it. I think especially Ed, he's a little younger than myself and I think Jim, so he came up, that was what comics were, so I totally understand. People get excited about the comics that they grew up with. That's what got them invested in the first place. My pal Robert Kirkman unabashedly loves all the stuff from the early Image guys, and I love him for it because I get it. I'm only a little older, and so I'm slightly less excited, but I understand that a year or two can make all the difference between how excited you get about anything. Nala15 to Artist says, I love your videos, Chris. It's so well researched with good humor. I'm a self-published comic artist writer and have an original web comic coming. Would you ever be up for a channel collab? Maybe, maybe not. I get asked this stuff every day, Nala, and I think I'm a pretty easygoing guy, like a nice guy, a people pleaser. So like there's a part of me that's always wants to give a yes to pretty much anybody. But I've had to learn to say no because it's just not realistic. And the reason it's not realistic is because of how busy I am. This channel definitely takes a lot of my time, and I have a full-time job on top of this. So, it's mostly a question of when, and I can be pretty unreliable even if I say that I can do something. So I don't like to be flaky. I've worked with a lot of artists on self-published stuff in the past, and I've had people flake on me. I had at least one image pitch that was basically accepted, and the artist just sort of flaked and slowed way down, and eventually they just sort of they forgot. They literally just forgot that they said yes, because it wasn't a contract yet. It was more of a verbal thing, and I don't want to be that flaky guy. I don't. So it's sort of like a very light maybe is the realistic answer. Where are you hiding Infotron? Will he come back? I'll give you a weird behind the scenes thing here. The main reason I haven't used Infotron in a while is I did a sketch where I turn into Swamp Thing. And to make the Swamp Thing costume, I was curious if it's down here. No, it's upstairs in my studio. To make the Swamp Thing costume, I removed Infotron's eyes for the Swamp Thing costume. They both have big red eyes. And I've been like, I don't really want to take them off and reattach them. It just hasn't been important enough to do that. But that's the main reason I haven't used Infotron lately, is he has no eyes right now. Let's see, Super Chat here saying, love your vids. About Liefeld, how do you feel about the nostalgic reevaluation of the 90s, especially in regards to Image Comics? I think every generation is going to reevaluate the stuff that they grew up with and have, another take on it as adults that they didn't as kids, but still have a nostalgic love for it. I can objectively look at some stuff I don't know, everything from Transformers to Friday the 13th and, say, yeah, that isn't necessarily high art, but I kind of love it because it's just stuff that I grew up with. So nostalgia shouldn't be underrated. And I think it is worth reevaluating, some of those early Image Comics, because beside just the stuff by the big guys that founded it, they gave some early opportunities to a very small network of guys. Dale Keown, for instance, it would be interesting to look back at Pitt and analyze that. Was that a complete story? He was a great artist. Was the story good? I don't know. I haven't reanalyzed it as an adult. So yeah, I think that it's definitely worthy of analysis, looking back at that stuff. My man Guts with the iron hand. Yeah, the cool thing about Guts is when we meet him, he has an artificial arm. He lives in a medieval time, sort of based lightly on Europe and stuff. And you're like, wow, how'd this guy get this powerful iron hand? But story-wise, they do eventually explain it. It makes him powerful, I will say that, because it's also a cannon, which I think is pretty cool. I will say that out of the comic book community that does reviews of, not reviews, but more analysis of stuff, and I'm including guys of course, cartoonist Kayfabe and Matt Draper, Comic Drake, Comic Storian, all these guys that have very successful channels, many of them more successful than mine. I don't see a lot of them reviewing too much manga. Some. I'm not saying any of them like don't like it, but and I mean, I guess if you look at me, it's not like I review tons, but I do try to mix it in fairly regularly here and there. There's a lot of good stuff in there that needs to be discussed, and hopefully none of them are about to release an episode about Berserk at the same time as me. or hopefully there's an audience that's big enough for both. I would like to find amateur comic book creators in my city. What advice would you have to find people? Oh, that's a great question, Darius. So when I moved years and years ago from Boston to D.C., it was very important to me to make new friends. And so I kept my eye out for groups that were interested in the same things as me. And one day at my local comic shop, they had a little flyer saying that like some people that were into comics in the area were going to have a face-to-face meetup at this local bar. And so I forced myself to go, and I became more or less one of the founding members of that group. And we went on to self-publish comics together, and we put on our own, we called it a festival, but it was essentially a Comic Con, a little one. And did all sorts of amazing things together, and I think really helped each other grow, and I made some really good lasting friendships there as well. So I would say create your own opportunities. If you're not seeing something like that, you create like a place and a group and promote it. These days it's even easier to promote stuff like that. But you could leave flyers at all your local comic shops, maybe some local like bookstores or artist galleries, and put together your own group of like-minded people. Whoever shows up is very likely going to be somebody that you can respect and have a conversation with. Are you going to become best friends? Maybe not, but you can create your own opportunity, and maybe. So that's my advice. Do you have any Hulk recommendations? Yeah, I mean, Hulk, the Bill Mantlo stuff, it has a lot of groundwork for stuff that would be followed up and built on by Peter David. I think Peter David's run is great. It's long. It's like many, many years, but it's great. I think that anything drawn by Herb Trimpe is really strong Hulk that like stands the test of time. So look up anything that Herb Trimpe drew. I think that Peter David's run is great, and I'm a huge, huge fan of... there's been a bunch, because Paul Jenkins did some good conspiracy stuff. Greg Pak had a great run with Planet Hulk being an absolute highlight, but I'm a huge fan of Immortal Hulk right now. That's one of my all-time favorites. How'd you get Harry Partridge to do your rockin' intro? Harry was an early supporter of my channel. I'm very, very fortunate. He was one of my first patrons. He reached out to me, said that, I was just creating the kind of content that, like, he enjoyed watching while he would work. That meant a lot to me because I was already a fan of his. So lucky me. Just lucky me. And so we've known each other now for a few years. And I just always told him, like, when you have an opening in your schedule, I want you to prioritize your work. But when you have an opening, I'm more than happy to commission you at, like, whatever you're comfortable with, and I'll probably pay more because I think your work's incredible, and I do, and I still do. I thought it then, I think it now, and I'm very happy we were able to collaborate like that. He was great at like listening to my concepts and my ideas of what I wanted with the music, and like I did like really simple, basically stick figure storyboards, but he really followed it closely and talked back and forth, very communicative. Everybody should be so lucky to have like a creative partner that listens like Harry does. And I felt like he really turned out a great product, which it's like having passion on something that isn't your idea is a challenge sometimes, but he definitely treated the whole thing with respect, and I'm very, very grateful for it. and hopefully you all are still enjoying it. There's lots of little Easter eggs in. If like slow it down sometime and look at the characters that he put in the background and stuff, you're gonna see that like there's a lot of little ideas that go by in just like a second, maybe only have a few panels, but like, you know, there's a lot of stuff based on comic book history in there. I think he ended up making it fun for yourself. What type of pen marker are you using? Cool question, Josh. This is it's by Tombow, which is a Japanese pen maker. It's a brush pen, nothing fancy. Looks like they've named it a Hudo no Suke. I don't know what that means. Buenas noches. Hey, are you up to date with X-Men? Sort of. I do have X-Men on my pull list because I've in the past really liked Hickman's work, but I haven't read the last like 2 or 3 issues because I've just been busy, so it's sort of like piling up, so I'm not 100% up to date. Have you thought of doing a video like, if you like this, then you can try this, where you say comics, manga that have similarities? No, I guess I haven't thought of that exactly. I feel like I have mentioned things like that sometimes, but not consistently. It's an interesting idea. Most of the time, when I'm talking about something, I'm more like directing you, like, if you want to learn more, maybe start with this or that. So I think that's mostly what I did. I have read Red Room. Yep, I interviewed Ed Piskor, and he gave me an advance copy to read. Plus, I have it on my pull list. I picked up Red Room. I like it. I like it more than I thought I did. At first, I thought it was just a gore fest for gore fest's sake, but no, there actually is an interesting story behind it. Ed's definitely pushing the boundary, and you know, I appreciate that, because who wants a boring comic? Let's at least try new things whenever we can. This might be weird, but who do you see as more influential, Jack Kirby or Mike Mignola? I mean, I think it has to be Jack Kirby. Mike Mignola himself is tremendously influenced by Jack Kirby, and I think you see that in his artwork. You know, Mignola's great. I'm a huge fan of his artwork. But I don't think he's influenced as many people as Jack Kirby. No, Jack Kirby's definitely set a really high bar to clear. A really high bar. Thank you for this super chat from New Type JBLE. Thoughts on the sliding timescale when it comes to the big two? For me, I'm not a huge fan of these characters will never age and die. I get it on a corporate level, but I dislike it on a creative level. Well, if you dislike it, sometimes I say it might be time to move on from those superhero comics, because these are serialized stories that are not meant to end, although we can get types of endings. You know, they're sort of what if comics. They're Elseworlds comics. This is a imaginary story. This didn't really happen. Well, none of it really happened, but they say that sometimes. And I think that if it's starting to not feel right to you, that sometimes is a sign to move on from those kinds of stories, because they're really not meant to be read for too long. They're meant for like new audiences to cycle in. You know, they really are. Do you have a favorite video you've made? I'll be honest, a lot of times I can't remember most of the videos, because I'm always thinking ahead and working on like a couple ideas at once. But let's see. Some of the ones jeez, that's a good question. No, yeah, I can think of a couple that I'm proud of, actually. I'm proud of the one I did on Bernard Krigstein. I'm proud of the one I did on comic book lettering, the one on comic book distribution. I like the one I did on Akira. So there's a few, I guess, that when I pause and think about it, like, come back to me, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of like that. Yeah, I've seen Amazing Screw-On Head. It's pretty cool. Boy, I'm drawing all these weapons and realizing my man Guts is pretty much always ready for war. Do you know the artist James Herron? Yes. Yes, absolutely. What do I like by James Herron? Let me just Google it real quick. Definitely like his work. Sorry, I just heard a sound. I think it's my cat jumping in the background. Well, I am picking up Ultra Mega by James Herron, so I definitely like that. I'm trying to think, what else has he done that I liked? Because he's definitely got this sort of sketchy but detailed style that appeals to me. I see a little bit of that in guys like James Stokey and Daniel Warren Johnson, where I think that they've been influenced by some manga type stuff, but they also have like an American eye for shadow and detailed. What else did I like by James Herron? Oh, he did some BPRD. I like that, but there's something else. Oh, it's just not coming to me right now. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I definitely like James Herron. Oh, Julian Martinez says, oh, that's what I just read. I'm too fast for myself. What do you think of the Marvel Visionaries series? Oh, I think it's a great idea. I think that there's so many great talents that have come through Marvel that deserve to sort of be looked at in like, you know, a nice way, and have their work put together as a group, is like saying, like, look, this is a body of work that stands scrutiny, stands the test of time. I think that that's great. Yeah, I think I've even picked some up. I want to say like Frank Miller was an early one, and maybe Walt Simonson. Yeah. Have I watched Loki? Oh, there's a question. Yeah, I definitely did. I like it. I like it quite a bit, but you know, it's almost hard not to like it. Tom Hiddleston is, you know, he's got the chops when it comes to making you care about a character. In a lot of ways, think about how lucky Marvel was to have cast Tom Hiddleston as Loki, because Loki could have just been a one and done villain in Thor, right? He could have, because they've had some pretty big villains that they've like just sort of used mainly just once, like say Red Skull or something like that, like, you know. And instead, like, he became the main villain of Avengers, and then they were like, no, this guy's great, and he works off of Chris Hemsworth really well. Like, they have such chemistry. But it seems like Tom Hiddleston could have chemistry with like a rock or a broom. He's good. He's Loki's been an interesting character, but I mostly credit that to the actor. Sometimes I'll give it to, like, you know, a director or a writer. No, I think in this case it's Hiddleston, because I've seen him in other stuff, and you know, he sometimes an actor just seems to have charisma. You know, you can't, like, what does The Rock or Tom Cruise have? You know, like they or Harrison Ford, because most of the time they kind of play the same character. You know, they've got a certain range, and the character might be a little bit good or a little smart or something like that compared to another character that they played. But mostly they kind of play within the same range. And I'm not saying, like, you know, Tom Hiddleston does something groundbreaking that isn't that, but I think he has that charisma that some of those guys have. So yeah, Loki's a lot of fun, and I think it's thanks to him. What do you think of Jupiter's Legacy cancellation? I'm fine with it. I watched the first episode and I lost interest. It felt kind of low budget. Just wasn't into it. Wanted to in a way, but nah. Whereas another Netflix comic book show that just started, Sweet Tooth. Watched the first episode of that last night with my fiance. We both liked it a lot, and I've even talked to some people at work that had watched it, and they were like, oh, there's this cool new show, blah blah blah. Oh, did you know that it was based on a comic book? Nope, had no idea. Doesn't matter, they like it. It's good. My favorite websites to buy physical comics? Geez, I don't know that I really do that, to be honest. I pretty much always go to my local comic book store for physical comics, or I buy digital. Interesting question, but yeah, I can't really think of any stores where I buy physical comics online. Huh. Maybe that's just that I'm old and old-fashioned, you know? I just don't think of that. Looking for a store online. Let's see. Ironic, Jupiter's Legacy felt low budget, and it had 200 million for its budget. That does seem high. Wow, I had no idea. I don't say this to like necessarily slight the CW, but it felt like a CW show, and I'm sort of used to streaming services like Netflix investing more resources than that. But who knows? DCBS for comics is great. Okay, yeah, I haven't used them. I think my store orders from them, but I don't. Let's see. Unless you don't have a local comic shop. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Do you know the comic book artist Andy Price? The name sounds a little familiar, but is he somebody that works today, or is he somebody from the 90s? Because I'm associating it with like a 90s memory, but I don't know if it's who you're talking about. If it's more recent, then no, I don't know. What did you think about the Old Guard? Oh, I did see the Old Guard. That was decent. I wouldn't call it like amazing, but it was good. That benefited from having Charlize Theron, that's for sure. She's gorgeous. Somebody named CB says, love the work and talk, Chris. Good night from Ireland. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me so late. That's so nice of you. I have not been to Ireland yet. My sister has visited it and talks it up. Boy, I hope someday soon I get to travel there. I love traveling. Maybe you guys already know that. I love traveling. If I was rich, I'd just want to publish other people's comic book ideas and travel. That's all I'd want to do if I was independently wealthy. And make the world a better place if I was lucky enough. I get my comics from Cosmic Monkey in Portland. Heard you've been there. I have. That's a great store. They like, it's big, it's spacious, it's got some nicely organized sections, and they've got that beautiful back room of back issues. Nice store. Craig, nice to have you here. C. Kim, looking good, Chris. That's very kind of you to... Oh, that's a very generous donation. Thank you so much. Wow. By the way, C. Kim is a very frequent contributor to the online cartoonist kayfabe community on Facebook. Will show up on live streams that the community puts together. Did one today. Great guy. Sorry, Horizon Brave. I don't know Ashley Robinson's Jupiter Jet comic. Don't know that one. Do you plan to review any lesser-known indie comics in the near future? Lesser-known ones. I do plan to do some stuff that, like, at least started indie. Usagi Yojimbo's one I've been meaning to analyze in some detail. But what's one that's lesser known? And I want to talk about Robert Crumb at some point too. I think he's pretty important. I've got some thoughts on that. That's a tough one. It's important to me to, like, promote stuff that people don't know as much about. But off the top of my head, I guess I don't have an idea right now for a lesser known indie one. Hopefully I come up with some. How do you deal with lack of motivation? Oh man, I think that can apply not just to like this, but to anything, you know. And I struggle with depression, serious depression. How do you deal with it? You try to take care of yourself when you know you're in a rational frame of mind, you know? You try to eat right, try to exercise, try to socialize properly. And sometimes you just go, look, what's holding me back? Is it that I feel like I've got another idea? Is it that I feel like I'm tired? Is it, you know, what is it that's holding me back? Like, you have to, like, sort of put that in your head. And a lot of times you're like, oh, I'm trying to perfect it. And you know what? You don't always get it right the first time. You have to be okay with sometimes doing drafts of things. So, yeah, I would say that, like, you know, just don't hold yourself to a standard where you're hoping to nail it the first time. Just go like, you know what? I'm just gonna do a version of it. Like, I'm doing this right now. It ain't coming out perfect, but I'm learning something from it. I'm having fun, just sort of like, you know, going through the process of learning to draw. It's just forcing yourself to just do something, and you know what? It's probably not going to be as good as you hope, but it's not going to be as bad as you fear. That's all I can think. Have I ever had art block? All the time. I'm lucky that I'm not, you know, a professional artist on, you know, a monthly superhero comic, because I think that I would have a hard time with that. I just don't know. That it always impresses me when anyone can do that. It's like, do I like everybody's artwork? No, but not the same amount anyway. But am I impressed with everybody who has done it? Yeah, I'm always impressed when anybody can make any comic. It's a lot of hard work. Even people that are jerks and assholes, I respect, like, what they do. Like, and I respect that they're passionate about comics. Like, you know, it's a great medium. It's my favorite medium. 3 a.m.? That's so nice of you to have stopped by, Stylish Sandwich Toaster. That's a good name, too. Drafts are key. Even as a filmmaker, sketches help so much. Yeah. Do you have tips for art block? Like I say, just force yourself to there's nothing else I can do to say, like, you know, do it. You have to do it. You have to sit down and go, I'm going to create at least a draft of what I'm doing, whether that's writing or drawing or whatever process it is. You have to force yourself to sit down. You can't let yourself not. You're the only one that can control that. You can't just go, oh, I'm hoping for divine motivation and inspiration. That ain't coming. You got to just put down a draft. You just got to put down a draft. So I guess that's part of it. Just knowing that it isn't going to get, like, suddenly easy by knowing a certain something. It's never going to be easy. That's the work part. The work part is just coming up with a draft. Done is better than perfect. Oh, I like that phrase. I've never heard that saying. Done is better than perfect. I like it. What are some artists you think have come a long way? Oh, man. There are some artists that, like, are unrecognizable from where they started. If you look at, like, Travis Charest, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, Charest. He started looking like, you know, he was working for DC on, like, you know, I don't know, like a Green Lantern or a Manhunter's book, something like that, set in space. And he looked kind of like a bad Jim Lee clone, of which there were many at that time. It was the 90s. But my God, you look at his artwork now, and it looks like it's just beautiful when he takes the time to do a comic. It reminds me of a great painter or something. So there's tons of guys like that. You know, we could be here all night just listing artists who've improved. Who's the guy drawing Immortal Hulk right now? Because he was another guy that, like, in the 90s was drawing Spider-Man and kind of looked a little bit like everybody else. I'm blanking on his name, folks. You know, like, I get, like, lost creatively and I start, like, not being able to think as clearly with my rational brain. So help me out if you can think of the artist who's doing Immortal Hulk, because he's become quite something. Barry Windsor Smith changed a lot. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, Jamie's here with a generous donation. Boy, I've got a lot of folks jumping in from Canada. Great to catch a few minutes of the stream before bed. Hope all is well, Chris. The drawing looks great. I'm serious, guys. I do feel good. And it feels so good to say that. You know, I mean, what was it, like 2 months ago? I thought I was going to die. I thought that, like, getting that sick, oh my God, it was terrifying. I thought I was going to die. And I'm still here, and I'm just excited to be here. It's as simple as that. I'm excited to be here. Bennett, yes. You're thinking of Al Ewing. So that's not his first name, Bennett, but Bennett is the artist on Immortal Hulk, and I would say that, like, he's changed a lot. Like, still recognizable, but, like, I think his early work just wasn't as engaging and dynamic, and I think it's really impressive right now. Yeah. So that's really something that's, you know, he found something that, like, inspires him. He's good at drawing monster stuff. Hello from Brazil. Hello from Brazil? I'm from America. Hello to Brazil from America. Got it close. The Golden Age arc might be one of the best things ever put to print. I think it's my favorite arc out of this, but that's not definitive, because I still liked it after it moved past that, you know. But I think a lot of comics, this sort of origin of a character is oftentimes their most engaging and exciting story. I think that's the case for Batman and Superman and Spider-Man, for instance. And I think it's sort of the case for Guts, because the Golden Age is, you know, like a really long version of his origin. A character that initially in the first arc, Black Swordsman, comes across as pretty unlikable. And you're like, do I really want to follow a story with this jerk? But boy, as soon as you know his backstory and motivations, all of a sudden you can get behind him. You're like, I understand why he's the way he is. I understand what he's trying to do. Maybe I'd do the same in that situation. So that's impressive to me. Hi, Chris. I'm a big fan and I love the show. That's very kind of you. I saw your episode on Scud. Oh, and I went to look for it and I couldn't find it because it's discontinued. Do you think it will ever be reprinted? Image reprinted it not that long ago, but I'll tell you this. Rob Schrab, the creator, has copies, and so if you follow him on Twitter or Facebook, he'll frequently put up auctions, you know, like buy it now auctions at a completely reasonable, normal price, signed editions. So my best advice, if you can't find the current, like, whole shebang, the last one that Image printed, follow Rob Schrab on his social media, and eventually he's gonna post some copies or trades of his work, and you can get it that way too. Yeah, and a great origin for Griffith. Well, and that's part of what makes Berserk something special, is how good his antagonist is. You know, a good antagonist is in many ways somebody's opposite somehow, which I think is Griffith. You know, he acts like a nobleman. He's more slight. He has a completely different way of fighting. He's a leader, and Guts, at least initially, is more of a follower, or a loner anyway. Whereas, you know, Griffith is part of a group. So they're different in many, many ways, visually and character-wise. They come to be friends, so now we've got a personal bond, and then he does something really horrible, and And part of what he does that's horrible, I'm trying not to spoil anything, is very personal to Guts. So now you have Guts he doesn't just want to stop this guy because he's bad. He wants to stop him for something that was personally done to him. Great characters. Great characters. Glad to hear you're feeling better, Chris. I'm feeling so good. Getting sick like that has changed so much of what I'm doing day to day, and that includes how I eat. Like, I have absolutely, nothing bad anymore. Like, my diet has been so strict for the last, 6-7 weeks, and I don't mind it at all. It's meat and raw vegetables. If I'm going to have a snack, the only stuff it's going to be are plain almonds, lightly buttered or salted, I should say, popcorn. I don't have any sugar, no sugar, very low carbs. I don't have any bread or anything. And do I miss having a pizza or a sub or a sandwich? I do, but I can do it. And it makes me feel better. I've got more energy and I feel better. I feel smarter too. I can think faster. 3:20 here, but I will listen as I try to fall asleep. I'm glad you were over the Rona. Yes, me too. Spoilers, Griffith stole Guts' social security card. Not only that, he stole Guts' Toyota Prius. And Guts had a nice Toyota Prius, And yeah, that was stolen from him. So who wouldn't hate somebody that did that, right? I think now we can all understand why Guts hates Griffith. Kind of a weird name, Griffith. It doesn't roll off the tongue for me. I don't quite understand the origin of that name, but something to just wonder about and maybe figure out someday. You do sound and look really good. That's very kind of you. Yeah, no, I haven't had Mountain Dew for a very long time. I cut out caffeine a long time ago. But now I've cut out everything. Let's see, I'm on a keto diet now, and you can still have pizza. Check out Fathead Bread. Yes, there are keto things bread-wise that I haven't gotten into yet. But I do have some cauliflower dough that has hardly any carbs in it, so I could make my own pizza. And we have I think a keto-friendly pancake batter mix. A favorite panel from Berserk? I'd have to give that some serious thought, Calvin. Realistically, it would be something that engages me, maybe... I can think of several, to be honest, though. Certainly Guts and Griffith facing off for the second time when Guts was leaving. That's pretty memorable. But I can also think of, huge panels of monsters like Nosferatu Zod. And yeah, and then if I'm just thinking sort of more story wise, right in the second chapter of Berserk is that really lovely panel where Guts is saying somebody died doing what they love, so he probably died happy, and he gets that. I'm yeah, that's kind of nice in its own way. Yeah, Griffith does sound Welsh. I'm not sure, though. I'm from South America, Brazil, and you're from North America, and for Guts, we're all meat. I guess some things bring us all together, yes. Zod's design is so great. Yeah, in both forms. Zod is an interesting villain. I wanted to thank you. I picked up the entire run of Strike Force Morituri based on your video. Great story. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the original creative team couldn't conclude it themselves. It just sort of slowly merges into a separate team that do some interesting things with it. I wish we could have gotten more of a complete story by one creative team, but it's such a strong premise with interesting characters, and is still a great read. Still great. Who was the best cook in comics? Do you mean fictional character or like real life creator? I'm not sure. Yeah, who's the best cook, folks? Well, since I don't know, I'll just say that it's my fiance, because A, she's a good cook, and she's made some 24-hour comic book day stuff, so that counts. She hung out with me for a 24-hour comic book day and made her own comic. She's a painter mostly, but she decided to do it once, and that was great. We had a good time. I'd love to do that again if I could ever get the time, but my job doesn't really allow me to have many days. Like, usually I only have one day off at a time, not two, so it's really hard to commit to something like 24-hour comic book day. I can create my own schedule, but like I really need to be there to work a lot to make the money that I want to make. Has there been any good gossip in comics lately? I feel like I'm not plugged into any hot fire going on in the world of comics, like, social media or whatever. I don't know. What's the latest hot goss? Free time? I think I heard fables about that once, right? Yeah. Folks, just so you know, this is my version of free time. If I have, like, when I'm like, okay, I've got some time off from, like, actual work, I don't have a ton of chores to do, like, usually that means I'm doing something for the next Comic Tropes episode, but if I want to do something a little more relaxing, it's this. That's what I do. Like, this is my version of relaxing, which is still sort of creating content for other people, so it's not 100% relaxing, but that's okay. I do enjoy this. I enjoy talking to all of you. I enjoy drawing. What comic series do you think deserves a proper video game adaptation? Huh. Well, there's a lot that you could do, like, like fighting games, but I feel like they still haven't made a excellent Superman game. But there was one game that had a good idea for it, but it wasn't, like, great as the game itself. Instead of Superman himself having a health meter, the city had a health meter, which I think makes sense. He'd have to protect the city from getting too much damage, or he's finished. Well, that makes sense. So I like that. I like the idea, and it also, like, could put you, in a super immersive world where you can create, like, devastation and do anything with your powers, but you'd sort of be penalizing yourself for doing it a lot. I'm not Comic Tropes, but Invincible needs a video game adaptation. Ah, sure, Invincible. I like that. Yeah, huge fan of Invincible, so I like that idea very, very much. Good suggestion. I like it. I think this needs a little more black to sort of have definition. So I'm going to color his breastplate in mostly black right now for a minute, because that's also kind of easy to do, and I can keep taking questions. We'll see where things go from there. A prototype like Venom game would be cool. Free roam is a must. You doing your chores while listening to this, Dominique? Well, thank you for joining me. I don't know the Danish comic Valhalla, but I'm always interested in comic books, especially from countries where I don't know too much about their comic book, sort of world. I don't know a lot about Danish comic books. What is Valhalla about? That sounds interesting for sure. Hey, cat. It's okay. You want to join? Come here. Psst. What are you doing? Our cat wanted to join me, and then as soon as I reached for him, he ran away. Care Bear Comics here saying, I wonder if Invincible will be DLC for the next Injustice game. You know, it could, and that wouldn't be bad, but I think that it could definitely support its own storyline if they wanted to do anything with it. Yeah, there's probably a lot you could do with Invincible. That's a pretty big world of superheroes and villains and areas. That could be a lot of fun to have an Invincible game. I'm sure we'll get one at some point. I mean, the Amazon show definitely seems to be a pretty big hit. Happy for Robert and Corey and Ryan, and my buddy Nate also did like some Invincible related comics and did the character design for background characters. So it's nice that all those folks are getting a chance to participate in the show. Greetings from Peru. Well, hello, Francesco. How is the weather down in Peru right now? I'd very, very much love to visit Lima and Machu Picchu someday, so fingers crossed I can do that someday. Robert Kirkman has said before that he wants an Invincible video game to be made. I'm sure he does. You know, I think that overall Robert's done a very good job of being careful with what he has sort of licensed. And, there's very different things. When you look at Walking Dead, the things that are based on the Walking Dead comic are often very different than the things that are based on the Walking Dead TV show, you know? He's got a little less control there, I think. I've never really asked about it. But I certainly think, like the Walking Dead Telltale game was more based on the comics than the TV show, for instance. And I think that was quite good. I haven't read Grant Morrison's novel Super Gods. I heard that they wrote that novel, but I haven't read it. What creative team would you like to see head a Planetary series? Do you mean like as an adaptation? Because I think the comic stands out great as itself. Valhalla. Oh yeah, the Danish comic, right? Mostly faithful recreation of tales from Norse mythology in comic book form. Like Thor and stuff. The series is 15 issues released over a period of about 30 years. Oh wow, so like one issue every 2 years? That's not the fastest, but that's okay. Do you find yourself depressed comparing yourself to your peers and feeling like you haven't done enough or not as good as your contemporaries? Absolutely. Absolutely. I suffer from very serious depression. I absolutely have thoughts like that. I try not to dwell on them. I take medication. I try to, these days, be healthy. Try to focus on work and socializing. But I definitely have those thoughts. Yeah. Ooh, super chat. John Lasacco says, I worked on the Walking Dead arcade game, and we used almost nothing from the comic or show. Oh. Oh, the arcade game. Dude, I played that just last week, where you start in the prison. What did you do on it, John? I was up visiting some family in New Hampshire, and I went to this place called Fun Spot, which is the world's largest arcade. And when I saw the Walking Dead game, I had to give it a try, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I pumped more than a few quarters into that. You are an inspiration. You work in and contribute to an industry you love. I do love comics. I just think it has so much potential to tell all sorts of amazing stories. Just my favorite. Just my favorite. One issue every 2 years. Liefeld would say to slow down. Oh, Care Bear with the easy joke. John says that he's an animator. Well, it was a really fun game. I played it with my sister, actually. And we were reloading that crossbow and firing them into zombie heads like crazy. So thank you very much for your work on what was a very, very fun game. Oh, I thought of another thing I'd do if I was rich. I said I'd just travel and publish comics. I would also get myself 1 or 2 arcade machines and pinball machines. Is Cory Walker an inspiration in your artwork? Yes! Yes, he definitely is. Cory influenced me a lot to change how I was drawing. He just wanted me to make everything so much cleaner than I had been. I really like Cory's artwork. I did a bad job on these. They're not as uniform as they should be. Cory would kill me. Yeah, love Cory's artwork. I don't see nearly enough of it. I miss seeing it regularly. Fun Spot is in King of Kong. Yes, it definitely is. Because Fun Spot has a lot of... I mean, it's the biggest arcade. It has original arcade machines that have never been modified or tampered with or anything. That, like, there's, you know, a certification to that effect. So a lot of times, if somebody wants to go for a world record on, say, you know, like Miss Pac-Man or Donkey Kong or something like that, it's held at Fun Spot because they know that there have been no modifications to the original cabinet or anything. So yeah. I know independent American comics are still very good, but what is your take on manga being all the top 20 comics in the US leaderboard? Well, it depends on, you know, like what we're looking at for the top. But yeah, it's been that way for a long time. There's a lot of good manga, so it makes sense. It's all just comics, and hopefully all it does is light a fire under creators here to try to produce their best work, right? Before the author of Berserk's sad passing, it was famous for its hiatuses. Yeah, basically ever since 2006, it's been going on hiatuses. Are there a comic series you follow or know that had similar hiatuses? One I know is Hunter x Hunter due to the author's health. No, I guess I can't think of any others that I follow that are sort of like really well known for their hiatuses. You know, Miura was a perfectionist. Bless him for it. Meant good comics. And then what else? Oh, hold on. My fiance is messaging me while I'm working. She's trying not to interrupt, but she's asking if I want some food. So I guess it's getting later. Yeah. Oh, okay. Tried to start this without it being too late, but yeah, I guess it's getting later. It's nice of her to cook for us. I lost train of thought there. TMNT Mirage was like that. That's true. Yeah, for American comics, TMNT Mirage took a bunch of hiatuses or breaks with their original creators. They definitely sort of got busy working on licensing stuff pretty quickly in the run, and started handing over the reins to all sorts of fill-in artists. Any horror comic writing advice? I think the biggest trick to horror is, well, there's two. One, you got to make the audience care about the characters, otherwise it's not scary like what happens to them. It's just, a slog. So definitely figure out how to make likable or engaging characters, relatable characters. That's going to be like the biggest thing I think you can do. But second, and really close for horror specifically, is going to be pacing. In comics, you can look at a whole page at once. So if you want a surprise reveal, it kind of has to be when you turn the page, right? It has to be on the even side page or a 2-page spread when you turn the page. Because otherwise, you're going to be able to look over to the right and not be surprised. So you can't do a whole lot of surprises in comics. And just sort of know that. You can do gore, but that's more creepy than scary, in my opinion. So just know that, it's going to be more about, the way you can make your audience feel than, surprising them. It's not a movie. Let's just sort of keep that in the back of your mind the whole time. Have you ever read Armor by Continuity Comics? No. I recognize the artists you're talking about, William, but I haven't. Yeah, Junji Ito does do good horror comics. He and he comes up with disturbing imagery. Disturbing imagery is something you can still do. Yeah, I've heard good buzz about Tress. I don't know if it's pronounced Tress or Trees, but the Filipino comics adaptation, the animation for Netflix. Netflix definitely seems to realize that a bunch of their audience are comic book readers. Alright, let's see. What else have I got to do here? You know what? I should fill in some of this Dragon Slayer a bit more, shouldn't I? Even though Guts has a sword that's comically large, the story takes great pains to actually have it make quite a bit of sense for how he's able to use a weapon like this and to present it as something quite special, and without it being like, that he's a superhero. I appreciated that. Try not to give everything away, but I will talk about it in some more detail in the next Comic Tropes episode that analyzes Berserk. What are your favorite comics artists? Also, what time period of comics is your favorite? Time period, I'm always going to say now. And I say that because I'm always excited by whatever's new. If you're going to ask me, my favorite nostalgia, it's going to be, the late 80s period, because that's when I really started reading in earnest. But I'm always most excited about what's coming out now. And then what was the other piece of that? The favorite comics artists? I mean, it changes. These days I really am impressed with guys like Sean Phillips from Criminal. Daniel Warren Johnson, I've mentioned before, has become a fave. Yeah. Tres is pronounced like 13 in Spanish. Tres. Tres, right? Trece? Anyway. Any piece of advice on self-publishing? Yeah, let's see. For self-publishing, get it finished, get printing quotes, and figure out how many you're going to. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My fiance just delivered me a dinner. Yeah, just figure out how many you're going to sell, whether that's through, a Kickstarter or, crowdfunding, or even if you submit to Diamond Publications and, they accept you, they'll, put it in previews, have comic book stores give you an opportunity to say how many they want to order, and just don't print too many. But get the comic done first if you're self-publishing it. Would I ever look at or review the comics by infamous Chris Chan? It's been tempting because they are kind of funny. But I think a lot of it would also involve me explaining who Chris Chan is. And there's a lot of videos out there that do that already. Plus, I don't want to be perceived as attacking somebody that has mental issues, And I'll just tell you, I appreciate his passion that made him make some comics. I appreciate that he finished it. That takes a lot. But from what I've seen, they're definitely not good comics, and I wouldn't have much nice to say about it beyond that. Am I liking Beta Ray Bill so far? Absolutely. I won't just eat in front of you folks. I just have to have a little something. So I probably won't review Chris Chan's comics. But if you don't know what we're talking about, YouTube has many videos about Chris Chan. He's an interesting individual. I guess I should say she, right? If I'm being polite. I wasn't trying to be rude. I just... Yeah. But it's Pride Month, so I'm going to be respectful. And my apologies. I don't know. Chris Chan is an interesting character. I'll leave it at that. Very entertaining. The Cerebus Guide to Self-Publishing is great. Oh yeah, there's a lot of... That's a good point. Like somebody said, what's the good way to self-publish? There's a lot of books out there that'll tell you how to do it. There's a lot of books. Does Chrissy eat as good as you now? Mostly. She's she's sort of able to have some of the more fun stuff. It doesn't affect her negatively the way it does me. So I have to be a little more disciplined than she is, but she cooks for both of us, and so she makes a lot of salads and meat dishes and stuff like that. She makes us a lot of good food. I'm very lucky. Never really ask her to, but she's often willing to, and I'm very grateful for that. Because she works too, so it's not like she's just here at home to cook and clean. She works. We both work. So I don't expect it, but she often does take that on, and so I'm lucky. I'm also lucky because she's a good cook. Have I heard of Tatsuki Fujimoto? No, sir, I haven't. Hey, look, Dank Axon has a Berserk symbol there. That's pretty cool. In the past, you've stated you like Bowie. Do you like St. Vincent? I do. I do. Chrissy introduced me to St. Vincent a long time ago. And I'm having trouble remembering for sure, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we saw her in Boston many, many years ago when she was just sort of newer. Many years ago. What current books have you been collecting, and what are your thoughts on them? One quick thing is I wouldn't say that I'm collecting anything. Like I take care of them, but I don't try obsessively to get like, a good grade or anything, or a full run of anything right now. I'm just not, I don't have the time to commit to collecting, but I am reading some stuff regularly. Right now on my pull list, I've got Ultra Mega, Orphan and the Five Beasts, Beta Ray Bill, Red Room, My Hero Academia, Immortal Hulk. What else? I've got some other things, but I'm having trouble thinking right now. Yeah, I'm blanking right now. Well, if it comes to me, I'll tell you what other books I'm reading. Sorry, all of a sudden I'm blanking. Any webcomics you're a fan of? I'll definitely be honest that I don't read a lot of webcomics, but one that I read is Bullet on Tapas by Randy Stone. It's good. Rip Kirby's the artist of Rip Kirby after Alex Raymond was family of yours, Silent Gamer. That's impressive. Rip Kirby's definitely an important book in comic book history, or maybe comic strip history, I should say, but it's important. Wow, thanks, Beta Ray Bingus. He sends me some sort of injured game controller. I'm trying. Let's see what we can read into that. Does Beta Ray Bingus think that I'm injured in some way, but still trudging on? I guess I'm damaged in my own way, but I'm still going. What tools for drawing do you use? Aside from pencils and inks, got it. Kneaded eraser, ruler. I tend to like paper. Bristol's good, but I like Paris paper for drawing on. Then I usually have some Copic markers to mess around with. So aside from pencils and inks, that's what I have. Because you specifically said aside from pencils and inks. It's cool to know you are fine and happy with your fiance. Take care of yourself. You are like the Bob Ross of comics. Oh, I don't know if I'm as productive as him. Boy, could that guy work. Can you imagine being that talented and just wanting to share that with the world and like being able to do it again and again? Good man. What's in the background? Synthwave. Royalty-free synthwave. No, I don't know Stephen Thomas. Sorry. Have you seen The Strange Death of Alex Raymond? I'm curious about it for sure. I'm very curious about it, but I haven't seen it yet. I want to. For those who don't know, that's by, well, at least written by Cerebus creator Dave Sim. Sort of flowed out of his follow-up to Cerebus. He was doing a book called Glamour Puss, where he was sort of studying how to draw certain realistic techniques and stuff like that. It sort of emanated from there, and he's writing, like, what is his take on the true story of the death of Alex Raymond, a pretty famous early comic strip artist. Yeah, Yeah, definitely curious about it, but I haven't read it yet. But if anybody's extra curious about that and doesn't want to wait, the cartoonist Kayfabe Boys did a video on it where they take a look at it. So, uh, yeah, Alex Raymond, great artist, amazing. Had all sorts of interesting issues in his life and died. Was it suicide? Was it like, intentional or something? It was a car accident. There's definitely some weirdness around the real life story, and certainly stuff that's worthy of being analyzed in a comic book biography. Is anybody out there planning to travel or anything now that we're sort of starting to get past the pandemic? Hopefully, everybody out there has been vaccinated. I know sometimes it takes a little while, so I definitely wish you luck if you haven't been yet. But good luck. But yeah, curious if anybody's planning any trips or anything. Personally, I did take a small trip. I got to see my family. Once we got Chrissy and I a little past 2 weeks out from our second vaccination, we traveled to New England to visit my family, and it was great because I hadn't seen them for a long time. Thoughts on the upcoming Death of Doctor Strange event? Don't have any strong opinions on it. He'll be back by the time the next movie's out. That's what I'll tell you. I want to try to go to San Diego Comic-Con next year with a friend. Good luck. Do I think Venom is overused? No. Venom's interesting enough, especially after the stuff Donny Cates has done with him. To say nothing for what Rick Remender did with the symbiote. No, I don't think I think he used to be when he first was created, but now not so much. Joe, thank you for the super chat, and he says, thanks for hipping me to different comics and artists that I would not have otherwise heard of. That's awesome. That's definitely a big part of what I'd love to do, is just sort of expose people to some different comics, talk about some of the stuff you love and give you maybe another point of view on it, but from there introduce you to some other great comics, as well as talking about what makes good and bad comics, so that if you like creating stuff, maybe you can get something there. You want to go see Monterey? Very nice. Drinking Guts and Iceman. Have you considered making another comic? I'm giving that some serious thought right now, Sebastian. I think I'm going to write a horror comic idea that I have. I've got an idea for a werewolf comic that I want to do. Probably just a one-shot. First thing I really need to do is find an artist that I like. Well, no, not the first thing I need to do is wrap up my script, because while I've got it outlined, that artist is obviously going to need a script. Second thing is to find the right artist. So I think that's something I might do towards the end of this year. We'll see. And then I'm going to pay them to draw some pages. We'll pitch it. If it gets picked up, awesome. If not, I think I could crowdfund it pretty successfully. But there's definitely a part of me that would love to go with a publisher. There's some advantages there. We'll see. Have I read Red Room? Yes, I read it for the interview I did with him, and I definitely have picked it up at the comic book store as well. In fact, I think I accidentally bought 2 copies now that I think of it. But that's okay. Double H says, keep it up. Still following your stuff and catching your tips as an artist and reader. Well, thank you. This guy's name is Double H. Ironically, perhaps, one of my dad's neighbors is Triple H. If you've ever watched pro wrestling, maybe you remember Triple H. He owns a home just like about 5 or 6, something like that, down the lake from my dad. So we drive past his house many times when we're visiting. It's a nice house. How do you imagine the werewolves will look in your comic? Scary. Big. Bipedal. We'll see. This is his satchel that, if you read this book, that his elf Puck likes to ride in, or at least used to when he was first met Guts. Let's see, fuzzy or naked? Both. Seen any good movies lately, asks James. Did I see any good movies lately? Wouldn't say anything great. The Conjuring 3 was okay, but I sort of say that as like somebody that has HBO Max, so it was like I wasn't like paying extra to see that one. If I went to the theater for it, maybe I'd have been a little disappointed. No, I can't think of anything that good that I've seen for a movie lately. And I haven't had a lot of time for TV. I've seen Loki and one episode of Sweet Tooth. I think that's it. Haven't really had time for anything else that I can think of. Are there any other good movies out right now? I'm trying to think. I'm a little curious about the Jason Statham one by Guy Ritchie, but I don't think I'll have time to see it in the theater before... Well, I just don't think I'll have time to see it in the theater, is I guess what I'm saying. Yeah. I got introduced to Satoshi Kon's films, and they're pretty great. Okay. I do watch Cinemassacre. Yeah, I'm a big fan of James Rolfe's work. He really impresses me. I think he's got a good sense of humor, a good eye for criticism. I think he films his stuff pretty well. I didn't love when he was doing the movie review show. Like, I didn't hate it or anything weird like that. I just didn't think it was like... Red Letter Media has set, in my opinion, a pretty high bar on what, an internet movie review show can look like. And, yeah, like, his was not quite as strong. In my opinion. Which, who cares what that's worth? But I love the Angry Video Game Nerd, and I love when, like, he just reviews movies, like, when he's had Monster Madness and stuff in the past. God, I love that stuff. Yeah, I definitely love Cinemassacre and admire James Rolfe quite a bit. He really upped the ante for what a YouTube show could be, or an internet review show. Who would win, Darth Vader or the Predator? I think definitely Darth Vader. He would probably sense the Predator, even if it was invisible. He'd be definitely be able to use the Force to block some of those laser shots. I think Darth Vader would definitely win. Yeah, I saw Kong versus Godzilla, and I saw Mortal Kombat. Again, you have HBO Max. You get to see that stuff, you know, like it just releases it the same day that they release it in the theater. So I think that was a good value. I'm glad I got that. I liked Kong versus Godzilla. It was kind of dumb and goofy, but that's okay. I liked it a lot for what it was. I really did. Mortal Kombat, that one sort of disappointed me. I was expecting at least better fight choreography, if not like a good story. I don't know. I don't know why somebody can't like now look at this point, like, you know, say Jackie Chan's movies throughout the 80s and into the 90s, or look at something like what do you call it, The Raid. And just go like, got it. If they can figure it out, we can figure it out. I just don't get why people can't figure out the pacing and choreography needed to do something like that. It feels like it's not rocket science. It should be doable. I like martial arts movies a lot, and when one's disappointing, I take it personally. Kentaro Miura does a really interesting thing, like, you know, when he draws an action scene, which honestly a lot of manga does, but he'd like have this, and he'd probably have drawn like thinner lines and stuff, but if I wanted to show that he had just like swung this up onto his shoulder, for instance, like everything here would be feathered nice and evenly, and it's just got such motion. He's just got such fluid looking motion. God damn. It's really sad that he will not be able to finish his 32-year-long story. If he left notes behind, yeah, I'm curious what he had laid out, but it's not the same. You know, if somebody else finishes it so we can get at least some story closure, that's nice and it's interesting, but it isn't going to be the same, and that hurts when, you know, some sort of creator doesn't get to finish their idea. Yeah, it just stinks. Oh geez, I hope that like this really is different enough, this music that I'm listening to, that it doesn't get claimed. It's on a channel that said that it was all like royalty free and stuff, but it's clearly a take on the Terminator song theme. But who knows? YouTube handles that all automatically. Listening to it, it probably has been modified enough, but I was like, hey, wait, I recognize this one. That's a good song, though. The Terminator theme. Kind of simple, and it almost reminds me of something like John Carpenter might create, but not quite. That's what it was like being a fan of Wheel of Time when Robert Jordan died. Oh, sure. That makes sense. I didn't read that one, but I'm aware of what you're talking about. I've got a friend that was a fan and was disappointed about that. I feel like that's what I'm going to get with Game of Thrones. Because, yeah, I know that the TV show finished its version, but it got kind of dumb once it passed the books. And I've just been, like, sort of still hoping that, like, George R.R. Martin is going to someday finish that. I don't know. It seems less likely every year. Seems like he's lost his interest in it. Or almost in writing in general, you know? He's just... doesn't do a lot. Does a few things. Doesn't do the one thing that people want the most. It's up to him. But it's a disappointment. I'm allowed to be disappointed. The inking is coming out really well. That's so nice of you. I think I'm probably going to like wrap it up actually here, but let me at least zoom in a little so that you can see it a little better. And someday I'll be able to get a better camera here and you'll be able to really see what I can do. But there. Zoomed in a little bit more so that you can sort of see what I've done. And if I finished, you know, let me just do this with a pencil, you know, like, if you're curious, like, this is his thigh here, his knee, his, you know, this is his leg and his foot up on a rock or something, with this one being more down here. You wouldn't see it, but like that. If that makes sense. But I think that that's where I'm going to wrap it up. I think that like I've sort of gotten it to an acceptable place. Looks pretty solid. That's kind of you. Now that you addressed Raj Comics from India, would you consider doing an episode on Mars Ravello and the glorious history of Filipino comics? Possibly. Possibly. I definitely want to talk about Filipino comics. There is a particular Filipino comic that I'd really love to talk about from Pocket Comics. Let me pull it up here on my phone and see if I can show you. But so far, I've never been able to find it. I've even called stores in the Philippines just to see if they had it. But so far, no luck. Yeah. Rambo. There was an unlicensed Rambo comic. That's Pocket Comics. That's a Filipino comic. This was a series. That looks like it's ripping something off by Mike Zeck, I think. But I don't know. So yeah, someday if I could ever find it, like there's look, for some reason this says Rambo Kid. So I would love to read these. If anybody that's watching this happens to be in the Philippines and you go to a comic book store with back issues, if you can ever find me the Rambo comic, like just one of them, that's something I'd love to review and use it as sort of an entry point to talking about the 80s, 90s Filipino comic books. And at some point I'm going to talk about the so-called Filipino invasion. Not a negative term. That was just like the British invasion, where a ton of Filipino creators started getting hired as artists in American comics. Going back into the 70s, but like a lot of them in the 80s. It's pretty interesting. Zaza Zaterna. I don't know that one. What are good inking tips and exercises you recommend for beginners? I mean, I consider myself a beginner. I don't think I've done anything too fancy with like the feathering or shading or anything. So I don't know that you can necessarily learn too much from what I did, but you know, learn to vary your line weights. Learn how light and shadow plays. Learn how to do different textures. Like just practice textures sometimes. And hopefully, you know, those are the techniques that can help you become a good inker. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't think I'm really anywhere special yet for my inking. But it is fun. I do like doing it. It would also be fun to Zipatone this. Oh man, this would look so much better if I could do this in Zipatone. But you know what? It's already over 2 hours. Tell you what though, I may I may zipatone this and like upload some images to like my social media at some point. I think I'll consider doing that. But I'm gonna take off now, folks. Wait? Somebody's saying get in touch with Jerry Alangulin, but didn't he pass away? I thought he passed away like a year ago. Am I thinking of somebody else? I could have sworn that he passed away. Everybody's been so kind tonight. Thank you very much. And I will say, thank you also for those super chats. You know, I never really like come out and ask for them, but I've been hit with two really big bills. One, YouTube was pretty good this year, but that also means I owed a lot in taxes for it, more than I'd really counted on. I hadn't really realized that YouTube had been doing pretty well. And so I hadn't set aside any of the money for the taxes on that. That hurt. And then also, that time in the hospital, like, my work's insurance has an out-of-pocket deductible for the year of $6,500. So everything after that is covered. Cool. It was a humongous hospital bill for being sick there. But I also got hit with that $6,500. And of course, I'm getting hit with both the taxes and the hospital bill at the same time that I was out sick. So I still haven't been reimbursed by the state for my medical leave. So I'm really in the hole right now. All that is to say, don't worry, that's my problem. I'll deal with it. I'll get past it. But I'm definitely hurting right now. So those super chats right now, super appreciated. That's very kind of you. So I will plug myself one thing. I put a pinned link here. I came up with a new t-shirt. If that's something you're interested in, I've set it sort of as low as possible where I'm just making a small profit on it, but like hopefully you're getting a t-shirt at a reasonable price. What it is celebrating comics all over the world. It's got like the comics in like about 5 of the biggest markets throughout the world in a font that's appropriate to the comics from that region. Thank you so much for that super chat at the last minute, Mandela Butterfly. Very, very kind of you. Thanks for listening to me sort of bitch about that, like stuff that's going on. It's really not the biggest deal in the world. I'll find a way to figure it out. But I am working right now on an episode about Berserk, about Kentaro Miura, about his creators and his creations, his main characters and the themes. Thank you, Double H. That's really nice of you. And look at this. Steve Sorensen is now a member because I see his badge there. I see his badge. You can also always become a member. You don't have to, but like, thank you. Okay, I sincerely wasn't asking each of you to do this, but that's really, really kind. Thank you. Thank you, Chris Sears, as well. It all helps because right now I got bills. We all got bills though, so I understand. I just want you to know, there's the option to become a member, support the channel. You just hit the join button that's next to subscribe. But I will always deliver comic tropes for free. You don't have to do that. You can just sometimes get early access and certain member benefits. But my priority is still to produce a free show for everybody that you can learn from and enjoy and have fun with. That's my goal. My goal is to entertain, not to like, fleece you or anything. But I sincerely appreciate the support. So thank you so much. You guys have made my night. I've had a great time chatting comics, drawing, and stuff like that. Like, thank you so much, everybody. You really helped me feel good about today. I'll see you soon. I'm working, oh, that's so nice, Steve. I'm working real hard on the next episode, so, what's today? Today's like Friday. Hopefully a little more than a week and I can have it ready, somewhere around there. That's, I think, about what it'll take. So anyway, I know you do, Chris. I appreciate it. I will see you all very soon. Thank you so much. Until I see you next time, you know what I'm going to tell you. Keep reading comics. Take care.